This is Drow Lens with the Disabled and Non-Disabled Alliance. It's a disability podcast that hopes to uplift disability in the conversation. In our first episode of our new summer season, we have a conversation on walkability and urban design. I explain the basics of walkability, what it is, and how it's implemented into neighborhoods. Showed some examples of walkable neighborhoods in the US and outside the US, and the benefits of walkability as a whole. This season, we're going to do things a little bit different. We're going to switch hosts every week with their own topic that they want to bring to the conversation. So it makes it easier on me, or everyone, especially me. I don't want to host every episode, and I won't be editing every podcast episode either. So it's going to be more collaborative instead of my podcast. This is our podcast now. Also, anyone is welcome to join the conversation. If you want to host an episode, then just contact us on Instagram at Dana@SaxState or message us on the podcast chat on our Discord. All the links will be on our link tree as well. I hope everyone enjoys the first episode. Bye.
You're listening to Through Our Lens with the Disabled and Non-Disabled Alliance at Sacramento State, a club, organization, whatever, for disabled students, staff, and their allies to discuss and educate each other about disability-related topics, advocate on behalf of disabled students and the community, and to hang out together and just be a community.
So we want to be more recognizable to SaxState. So please join the conversation by following and messaging us on Instagram at Dana@SaxState. It's DANA@SaxState. Hey everyone, and welcome back to Drow Lens. I'm here today with Rian, William, and Will to have a conversation on disability, more specifically on walkability and urban design. And right now, we're just members of the Disabled and Non-Disabled Alliance. It's kind of complicated for officers or not. I don't know yet. Yeah, since this is a new season, let's just reintroduce ourselves. What's your name, pronoun? What's your kind of focus? What's your major? And what do you want to do? What are you passionate in?
I'll volunteer as tribute first. I'm Willian Wyatt, of course. I'm He series. Major is philosophy with a concentration in ethics, politics, and law because I'm pretentious. And what I'm passionate about, I suppose, is ethics, politics, and law. Unfortunately, and especially as those things pertain to disability and arranging the market to be a better a thing that better serves people if it can at all. So yeah, that's what I'm part of what I'm doing here is the conceptual development, building the tools and promoting those tools to grapple with the political situation. So yeah, thank you for being here. I don't know, hopefully listening to me, I guess. Everyone else too.
Okay, Rian, do you want to go next?
Sure, I'm Rian Dindzans. I use they, them pronouns exclusively, and I am currently a human development major at Cal State East Bay. I'm sorry, I betrayed you all. I'm a traitor. I transferred from Sac State. I'm no longer a Sac State student, but I wish I were. But anyway, I am passionate about many things, but for the purposes of this podcast, disability, justice, and community are one of those things. And I look forward to our conversation today.
Let's go. Yeah, and then Will?
I will. Pronounce easy. I currently major in interior architecture, and I focus more on the accessible design, mostly on the residential building. So California doesn't have a lot of accessible homes, so that's what I focus on.
That's awesome. And then next, yeah, I'm Brian Thao. I'm an environmental studies major, but I want to go into city planning. So I want to kind of improve infrastructure in the city, make it more accessible. I want to be a part of projects that improves public transportation systems in Sacramento, make it more accessible for me and for everyone here. And that's kind of why I kind of like chose this topic, walkability and urban design. That's why I'm kind of passionate in, and that's what I like talking about. And then my pronouns are he, him, his. Almost forgot. Yeah, I think next thing we should do is kind of introduce like walkability. Like, what exactly is it? Like, I'm gonna like give like a few things about it. So walkability is like a city planning concept that encourages mixed use, high density neighborhoods where people can access essential services and amenities within a walking distance. So everything you need is just like right around the corner, like a grocery store, movie theater, a park, restaurants, gym, hotels, apartments, retail stores, water features, parks, like and like what exactly is mixed use? So mixed use is, think of it like, oh, okay, there's this one district, the business district, and there's this other district that's next to it, the housing district. And mixed use is when both of these districts are mixed together. So like for example, maybe like in a building, the business is on like the bottom, on the first floor, and the housing, the apartment, is on the second floor. Or it could be this way, but the business is right here, is like, is in a building, and next to that building is our apartment building. That's what makes this all about. A high density is when, I guess, like different things are kind of mixed basically. And like the spaces should be like livable rather than like automobile like dependent. So instead of making a highway, make it like a walkable community where there's things to do. And there's a lot of like benefits. The social benefits, people are actually attracted to like green space, so they're going to talk to more people, they're going to hang out with more people at the park. And there's an economic benefit. When things are so close to each other, people would like spend more money at those places. And there's this environmental focus as well, because it's not like automobile dependent. There's less greenhouse gases that are emitted. Instead of driving, they're gonna walk a lot. And but there's this other aspect to walkability. So when people think of walkability, they only think about, I guess, like the ability to walk, people with the ability to walk. But that's not actually the case. Walkability accounts for everyone, for all kinds of people with disabilities, people of color. So it's not only focusing on the able-bodied people, it's a focus for everyone. And that's what basically walkability is. And a lot of people here have a lot of things to add, so feel free to add things.
I kind of live in a walkable community. I say kind of because I live in a more housing area. Like my house is like in the middle of a neighborhood, and I have to walk like at least 15 minutes to get to the nearest store. But I don't mind the walk necessarily because there's the Iron Horse Trail like very close to our house, and I just hop on to the walking trail and chill while I roll along. It's
Yeah,
a little
wait.
relaxing, really.
It's relaxing.
But the point is that I can easily and independently get to where I want to go so long as I give myself enough time for it. Which is extremely useful because then I don't have to like ask my parents to take me to the store or to take me to get ice cream. I can just get ice cream myself because I'm an adult and I can walk there myself. And it's really nice, but my only complaint is that there's not enough care and attention put into the trail itself, which is why it'd be great to have more of a focus on the walkable community within my own community. Because the way the trail is now, they try to fill in the cracks like every couple years with, the concrete. And we live next to a fault line. We're always going to have cracks. So why don't we have like a better foundation for the trail itself? Because I think the problem is that there isn't like a proper foundation underneath it. It's just on compact dirt, so it keeps slipping and it's more prone to cracking, and it's just really uncomfortable to ride on certain parts because it'll kind of dip to the side. Like there'll be potholes, and it's not great, but a lot of people with bikes and strollers use it. Like it's an essential piece to our community in terms of like being able to connect with each other and travel. So it'd be nice if they paid more attention to it and treated it better.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I have similar experiences. Like I have a bike trail, but like it's really bumpy in like some parts because of like trees and stuff. Trees are like ruins like the bike trail, and it makes it really bumpy for me to kind of ride on it. And yeah, yeah. Anyone else add anything?
First of all, I love the idea that, you know, I'm an adult. I can get my own ice cream. You said if I had money, I would be able to get my own ice cream. That was the deal. Yeah. So and also Brian Thao, you are the last person I would have ever expected to throw shade at trees.
Oh,
If you'll forgive the expression. So for my part, in my experience, like East Sacramento, where I live, in like student housing, is, and like slightly off-campus student housing, it's dumb. But don't worry, because the contract's ending and everyone's getting kicked out. Where I live is pretty walkable, surprisingly so, in some ways. I think that's just because this part of the city is kind of old, and we'll get there a little bit with like cities in that already exist that are very walkable, or areas that exist that are very walkable. A lot of them are outside the United States. A lot of them are much older, and that's the idea. But yeah, basically the East Sacramento is pretty walkable. And the thing that I think really limits that walkability in the United States for the most part is the fact that in general, walkability is always a secondary consideration when city planning is being done. If it's a consideration at all, and if you've been to huge swaths of California, you know it isn't. Currently, what that means is that walkability infrastructure is kind of built, and I say walkability infrastructure, I do just mean the kinds of paths that people can traverse on foot or wheelchair, whatever it is. As you say, it's all being built like alongside roads and in a system in which urban sprawl, as a result of roadways, has already taken root, has already taken place. I've spoken before about this phenomenon, I think, and I may be wrong about that, but basically when you build roadways, that creates more demand for more roadways, because for the same reason that a human body would be a lot smaller if it didn't have any blood vessels in it. You know what I mean? The fact of there being the roadways spreads things out, makes things further apart from one another, creates demand for the automobiles that then use those roadways, which creates demand for new roadways, and the sprawl continues.
Yeah, and there's like another aspect to it. Like instead of like rebuilding like the housing, the downtown, the already urbanized area, they're just gonna build out, and that's what urban sprawl is about.
Yeah.
It's just building out instead of building up or rebuilding things.
Yeah, and there are, you know, one of the upshots of having more walkability in our infrastructural projects is that walkability, or that infrastructure, is easier to maintain as it becomes more central to the focus, just as a matter of logistics, because there can be less of it. It just takes up less space overall in roadways. That's one of the things I wanted to make sure that was brought in here, is that it's a good investment for a lot of reasons. One of them is that it makes cities more tourist friendly. Another is that it's more ecologically friendly, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's plenty to be said for walkability as like especially as a principal infrastructural focus. But one of the main things is that it's just literally financially easier to maintain if you're the city, and by corollary if you're the taxpayer for that city. So yeah, there's that I wanted to make sure I say for it. And just to put it in the mind of the audience that don't expect to see the right kinds of articulations of walkability in most of the United States. We will get there to the examples, but a lot of them aren't in the US, or a lot of them are very unusual for the US. So yeah.
Yeah. I guess like, what's your experience in walkability?
So before I talk about it, I just wanna say I kind of like how we left put like how we spend the street similar with the one event, like that. So for the most part on my walkability, I don't and I don't have a lot of experience with that because I live in like just the house and the
Same.
street normal. But I usually go there and I really like it because of the how, except when the surface is good for me to go. But for the most part, I like it how they have all the tree around and every the store is like right there. I can just walk like grab my chair, not far away, to like enjoy those things around. Yeah, and I don't have a lot of experience, so that's all I got.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I don't have a lot of experience either. I have like a little bit of experience. Like whenever I have those experiences, I'm like, wow, I really wish I lived here. I really wish I lived in like downtown, but it's so expensive. It's not worth it.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's so expensive, and I don't I don't like to live in like the busy uh area of the city. So that's why.
Yeah, it's also like a lot of sound. It's
Yeah.
very loud in there sometimes in the city. Yeah, I want to show some examples of like walkable communities. The first one is, let's just do the one in Amsterdam. So in Europe, like a lot of, I guess, like cities are kind of rebuilding like some parts of the city. Like for example, this is a, I guess, a street in Amsterdam. Like, do you see how cars are like parked like next to buildings, and below that is like after in like the modern like area. Like there's no cars. It's all about bike infrastructure, I guess the walkability, green space. There's like trees in here, and I guess like William, you had things to add here, right?
Way too much to go into. However, one of the things that I will say is that yeah, this kind of thing is relatively common in Europe as partly as a result of a lot of those cityscapes being older and therefore partly or largely built pre-automobile. However, one of the things that really jumps out to me about from what I understand about this history and about especially the very recent European history is that it has mostly been or largely been by popular demand, not by infrastructural necessity, that European cities have catered to bike paths and walkability infrastructure, etc. And what's interesting about that is that it's not played out in the United States. Not for nothing that those European nations are in post-war reconstruction broadly more democratically run than the United States is. Ergo, the car lobby has less of a say, and the people have more of a say proportionally in those cities, in those spaces pertaining to those spaces. So the I think that's again another thing that's worth planting in the minds of American audiences, that people can and in some places do want walkability, and in some places, at least compared to the United States, the government listens to them and builds it.
Yeah. Plus, like
beneficial for them.
I guess like the U.S. like communities like want like cars, so they have like that kind of freedom in a way, that kind of freedom to like drive everywhere they want instead of using public transit or like make neighborhoods more walkable, so they don't have to use a car. And like it's a big economic point too. I guess the gas prices are really high right now, and people make money on gas.
Oh yeah, and car prices have always been through the roof as far as the amount of income of your income that it takes to lease or buy and then maintain it. And then there's the tax money that goes into maintaining roadways against weathering and reconstruction, et cetera, et cetera. Like roads are a huge investment in what amounts to urban sprawl.
Really expensive. Yeah. Rian, do you have anything to add here, or like, what do you think?
I do like walkable communities a lot, but I think it might be more productive on certain fronts to have a way to balance the two, like not have roads rule the community, but at the same time, not. I don't think it's reasonable to make walking or biking the only way to get around in a community, because there's only so far I can go in my wheelchair. There's only so much time I'm willing to spend walking. It takes about an hour for me to get to the city center in my chair, and if I had to work there, I don't want to walk an hour to work, right?
Yeah.
And there's something to be said about the relationship between how we view time and schedules, and how we view transportation. I think we could stand as a society to slow down, to accept a longer commute, and to not have such demanding hours. But at the same time, with certain things, you want to be able to get there quickly. And so I'm just in my brain, I'm just thinking right now about, how do we strike that balance? Because I don't want roads and highways to be the only way to get around, because
absolutely.
then I can't get around independently. But I also don't want pathways and walking to be the only way to get around, because I don't have the patience or the stamina for that. When I'm rolling in my chair for like more than 30 minutes, I start to get dizzy. And if I don't have a place to stop by like the hour mark, which is good that the city center is only an hour away, if I don't have a place to stop by then, I'm gonna be suffering, dude.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not gonna feel good, and it's not really something I can build up a resistance to. I don't know why it happens, but it is something that I have to consider every time I'm deciding whether to just go there myself or whether to ask my parents to take me.
Yeah, I think one of the solutions is just public transit. Like that's a good option. That kind of like balances the walkable communities. Like for example, there's just one walkable community here, like in point A, and there's another walkable community at point B. And basically you just use public transit to go to the other walkable community or go to the city center. Because I know like walking like for like a whole hour is really tough on like your mental, but like but it's good. Like that, I think that's one of the solutions. So we are not like so reliant on highways. We're reliant on our own like body and like public transit when things are too far. And talking about like what you said earlier, like I guess walking can take you so far, or public transit can take you so far. Like I think roads are necessary. I think of the logistics of like going to California driving, or going to California to like New York. Like you're obviously gonna drive at some point.
Oh
Like,
yeah,
it can be
definitely.
helped. Yeah, so I definitely like do understand like the why that has to be it. Will, do you want to add anything?
When I look at that, it's I really like the bottom one, but like Julian say, it's kind of hard for me to drive like an hour to go somewhere. So it can be really tired, and sometimes the walkability community with the pathway, it's when it's not flat, it's really hard to go.
Yeah, it's like especially like in Europe, like there's a lot of cobblestone like everywhere.
Or brick and stone.
I hate bricks and cobblestones with a
Yeah.
passion.
It's tough.
They're so horrible to
So
roll
there's
over.
there is an example in the it's not a walkability community, but it's the old side when I just go through all the
Oh, yeah.
and that's just check on my wheelchair and I
That's
cannot go past.
that's so tough. Yeah, my head like shakes a lot when that happens. And yeah, it's awful in a way how that's like inaccessible in a way. But there's still like this they still kind of want wood for this old town feeling.
Yeah, I understand that they just want to keep the historic side.
Honestly, I kind of just want to like go on the street.
Yeah, I did that.
This
One
is
of the
kind of
things-
why I like Sacramento, because there's so many different options for public transportation,
Mhm.
and you can also find your way pretty easily just by walking. I've navigated through Sacramento several different ways by this time, because I'm gay and that's where my partner was living. But you know, for our different dates, we go to different parts of the city, and it would look daunting at first because of the distance. But then, you know, I'd figure it out through public transportation or by specific walking paths. And you know, as long as I had data on my phone for Google Maps, that was good. You know.
Yeah, and I kind of want to talk about like another example. Yeah, because that kind of like I guess what you said, like it doesn't feel like you're walking for that long because of public transit or because there's attractions. Like there's this San Antonio, Texas, has a Riverwalk walkway of all like places. Basically, the river walkway is just like one level below the street, and it's kind of like the walkways. There's two parallel sidewalks lined with the river right here, and along these sidewalks there's restaurants and shops. So like when you're walking on this like sidewalk area, it doesn't feel like you're walking for that long because there's attractions, there's blue space, there's like trees everywhere, there's people around. So it doesn't feel like the same in a way.
Very much
This
it
is-
feels like a tourist kind of place.
Is
This is
And
one
I
of the
imagine
few
it's all right.
times that I'm gonna say that I feel like visiting Texas for this specifically.
Yeah, honestly, like that's what like a lot of my friends say. Like, why Texas? Oh, this okay, cool.
How, Texas? How in this one spot have you done it right?
And there's other pictures that I have.
One of the things I think is interesting, like about the point where like cars are kind of necessary, is I personally agree with that. In my mind, the model here goes the central the proper place for like walkability as a consideration is as the central tenet of infrastructure project, and then ancillary and necessary like road work and public transit work can be added into that scheme once proper attention has been paid to walkability. That doesn't mean it's that the resulting infrastructure will be such that the only way to successfully get around would be to effectively walk it. Because while you know the conceit of walkability is to reduce urban sprawl, thereby bringing things closer to you overall, if there will still in all cases be times and circumstances under which you have to travel a much longer distance, and that means that public transit and cars and stuff, and especially for freight transit, we'll probably find that roadways continue to be necessary. They continue to be a place for the automobile, especially the freight transporting automobile, but even the personal kind of ones. The emphasis for me is just dethroning the car as the central thing around which cities are built.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also I forgot to mention that this like Riverwalk is in downtown San Antonio, and it leads to the convention
two spots.
center, the the downtown area. I guess like and I think like the stadium. So I also like this. This wasn't here in the first place at all. It was actually like rebuilt. I think this was like a highway or some kind of road, and they had to like make the lake or the river.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So
Well,
that's so human though.
mhm. Well, do you have anything to add, or like, what do you think?
So it's colorful. I mean, just blue and red, a lot of.
Mm-hmm.
And how's the mode? It looks like just the mode is accessible, right?
Yeah, it's accessible. Like some of the things that's not inaccessible is like the bridge right there. But there's like other bridges that's not that bridge
Yeah.
that's more accessible. That there's elevators and
So
stuff. But
I would take the mode because with this much of people, it's really hard to like drive a wheelchair around.
yeah, no, I mean like this is just like one example of like rush hour,
Yeah.
but usually it's really empty. And like it's more empty around like the green space that for the other image.
I like that they have a lot of trees though.
Mm-hmm.
I like trees though.
Yeah, and there's also this hotel here.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's more along there. Yeah, and also like there's still places to sit down at some points. Like there's still places to kind of relax.
I like how that third picture finally looks like it's actually from Texas. There's two
Yeah.
different American flags, and then it says Republic of Texas on the left.
Yeah,
they had to make sure you knew. Otherwise, it'd be like, what am I looking at? Vienna?
yeah. Actually, like William thought that this was Amsterdam or EU country, not Texas.
Well, I think Texas is like it had a hot temperature, so
Mm-hmm.
I would think like a lot of people in the walkability community
Yeah,
just make it feel more cooler.
yeah. I actually, I guess they're more focused on cars anyways because it's Texas. They want the freedom.
Yeah.
And actually, like, I think the Department of Transportation in Dallas or Houston or whatever Texas city, like, actually wanted wanted to make 2 more lanes on a highway, but the city people were like, no, that's awful. Like, it's just gonna get more pollution. There's also this construction costs of like pollution, economic things like that. It's not gonna be beneficial. It's not gonna improve, I guess, like driving times. It's just gonna make more people drive onto it because they think it's beneficial. It's gonna be faster. But the
Yeah,
community
like-
and I guess the politics says no.
It's like
I feel like
it's so
if we
fun.
had more trains alongside highways instead of expanding the highways, that'd be a more effective solution.
Mhm.
I really like trains, you guys.
I like
Like,
public
I'm not
transit,
like
too.
obsessed with them, but they're so easy to use. You just get on the train and then you go. You don't even have to drive anywhere, and you don't have to worry about crashing into things or dying in a
That's another
horrific
thing.
accident. Like, the number of train accidents is probably much lower than the number of car
Yeah, it is.
accidents on average. Like, yes, you're getting into another heavy metal tin death trap, but it's less of a death trap because it's not as likely that it will become a
Mhm.
death trap.
Yeah. There's no like I guess like head-on collisions of trains.
Like if we put a little more love and care into the BART system and like
Mhm.
improved it and expanded it, I would take it more often. I can't take it now because it's a little spotty in accessibility and how clean and orderly and efficient it is. But like, if we made it better, more people would use it and less people would be on the
Exactly.
highway. Therefore, you don't have to spend all that money expanding the highways. And like William said earlier, like with the demand thing, when you add more lanes, you increase the demand. So you're not actually lessening traffic. You're
Exactly.
just bringing in more people because they're like, oh, the traffic's going to be better here now. And then by coming there, it's just as bad as it always is.
Yeah, it's very interesting, like logic puzzles that play out that sort of that kind of thing where you build a more efficient path and then it becomes the least efficient path as a result of being the more efficient path in theory for each individual person. It's fun. But yeah, one of the things that I do want to make sure to like leave the impression in people with is that yeah, walkability and the public transit that occurs alongside it with minimal necessary roadways is safer, just straight up. I mean, there's no version of the car that is more safe. Not these self-driving cars, not even like more limited numbers of cars or differently designed roadways that is safer than walkability and public transit is just by default. And while it's not impossible to get walkability and public transit wrong, of course, it can definitely be such that it needs improvement. And there's sort of an inherent tension, right, between building cities that are more dense and therefore more walkable and building cities that aren't overcrowded to the point of being hard to live in and expensive and stuff. But even confronting that obstacle is easier and results in greater safety and greater well-being for greater numbers of people than centralizing the automobile as the way of getting around.
Yeah, I also want to bring up this other transportation like policy or like urban planning, I guess, like policy or like idea. Basically, this is called transit-oriented development. Basically, this combines walkability and like public transit together. So I guess like the development is centralized around a high-density, mixed-use, sustainable, walkable community, and there's public transportation stations around like 2,000 feet of walking distance. And like that's what I'm really interested in, combining public transit and walkable neighborhoods so that people can get around without the need of a car.
Yeah.
And there's like enough stations where it's accessible for like you, Rian.
Yeah. I want to add one thing to the safety point William was making. The only thing that makes me feel unsafe in a walkable environment is cars.
Mm-hmm.
The cars. Because, like, I can't tell you how many times I've almost gotten run over by people driving in Sacramento because I was waiting at the corner for my turn to go and they decided to go fast around the corner to go first. And I'm like, Jesus Christ. Am I invisible? People stare at me all the time. You're telling me you did not see me waiting to cross the street and you instead speeded past me, almost hitting me? And like, we have these problems in my community too. There are people that speed on certain roads and I don't know why, and it's really dumb and dangerous, but it's worse in Sacramento. It happened like 5 times in a row on one trip.
There you go.
The only thing that makes walkability unsafe is the cars. So that's why it's safer. Like it's inherently safer.
Yeah. Yeah, and I feel like I'd be remiss not to mention that like there's a justice aspect to this beyond, but in addition to disability justice, where those who have less like social privilege overall in terms of both economic means, that is to say money to buy cars with, and in terms of the sort of intangible social privileges and disadvantages, such as the weird disparity between like myself and others, whereas I almost always get the right of way just because I'm partly surely I have less of experience of almost getting run over because of what I look like, right? It's hard to prove with data, but there you go. So there's the justice aspect of more walkability comes partly, and I think largely, from the fact that fewer people will need to, as a result, buy and maintain their cars, which is an extraordinarily expensive undertaking, and one which has the effect for many people of reducing quality of life by way of taking up such a large proportion of incomes. keep all else constant, but get rid of the cars, and people will be more happy, probably, but just by way of having more of their income to use. And that means there's like less of a disparity in quality of life between those who face historical economic marginalization and those who don't.
The whole driving car thing is even more expensive for people who need adapted controls, because the controls themselves can cost upwards of $100,000. The installation of just the controls in the car, and that is on top of the price of buying the car and maintaining it. And if the controls start malfunctioning or breaking down, or the ramp doesn't work, you have to take it in and pay more. There's so many expenses, honestly, and I have to go through that, because that is the only way I'm going to be independent, because there is not enough public transport to support me having, freedom of range in this state.
Yeah.
Even
so
in this community. I need to be able to drive a car if I'm going to have a job. And it's going to be so fucking expensive, and I am not looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's really expensive. So I found this. This is called like I guess like Sidewalk Strips. So basically this makes it safer for like wheelchair users and people who want to walk. Because there's this bike lane here, and there's this strip of grass or strip of green space. And when cars are coming, you're not like next to the road at all. There's things blocking it. There's trees, there's street lamps. So it's a little more safer for like people like us, I guess.
Yeah, we actually have a lot of those in my town.
Yeah, it's called like Sidewalk Strips, and this is like really good to make it more safe.
It looks prettier too.
It does. This is Elk Grove. Elk Grove is rich, so it makes sense. Yeah. So what do you think about this Sidewalk Strips?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of those,
Mhm.
and I feel safer to go on that, because a lot of sidewalk I go through is the car go pretty fast,
Mhm.
and it's only like just a sidewalk. And somebody has to like walk like on the roadside, so I don't like fall down. I mean, like I don't like just drop my wheel down. And on this one, it's just so comfortable. It look like oh, it's Elk Grove. Okay, I know it.
Yeah, it's Elk Grove. Like also Elk Grove is like centralized around like man-made lakes, so you can see a lot of water, blue space there too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
California
you're never gonna get me to like Elk
because
Grove.
looking at that, all that makes me think about is how expensive those houses must be.
It is so expensive. It's like $1 million next to River. Yeah.
Okay, wait, no. This is how I know housing is messed up, because if those are $1 million, that's actually cheap.
Yeah, isn't it $1 million? I don't actually know.
Our neighborhood's houses, including our own, are estimated at like over $1 million, like $1 million or more. We're not even that good. We're not even that fancy. We're not close to a bunch of convenient amenities. It's just blowing up for absolutely no reason. Like the houses don't even look that good. They're not McMansions or anything.
Yeah.
They're just normal houses. They're not worth $1 million. You're telling me those are $1 million? That is cheap. That's cheap.
Yeah, or maybe 2 million. I don't actually know, but it's
there's a few
expensive
different
in a way.
considerations with that. One of them is like speculators, but another is the fact that single family homes are so
Yeah, it's expensive.
popular amongst like politicians designing these infrastructure projects, and I don't know, because they think they can court the Republican vote that way or something. I don't know. So yeah, like housing gets really expensive. I think there are reasons to say that it would be less expensive if walkability were more of a thing. Although I don't want to give the impression that like walkability as an infrastructural idea is the quick fix to all problems in life. Certainly there are, places in Europe as an example case that are super walkable and yet also super expensive. It definitely happens, and I lay a lot of it at the feet of speculators buying up properties and not using them. But that's partly that's only part of the issue.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Talking about walkable neighborhoods, I guess like suburban neighborhoods aren't walkable at all. And when it goes close to downtown, it's a lot more walkable. Like for example, this is in downtown, and next to the Golden One Center, over here somewhere.
hey.
And this is this is a bad picture. But basically,
Yeah, it's not done building yet.
Yeah, but when I was there, this is 2017. Let's change that real quick.
Yeah.
Okay, that's still not a good picture. Okay, but basically there are actually this is a good picture because it shows like the change. Because right here now there's restaurants, and it's a lot more walkable here. And I guess this used to be like a road, but now there's a change. So I guess there is like some changes in like downtown areas. Yeah, and before I kind of like, and we have like 10 more minutes, so I want to show this one in Korea, this walkable neighborhood.
Oh, I am jealous.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Oh, they completely changed.
Live in Korea.
Yeah, they completely changed it.
That's impressive.
Yeah, it is. Okay,
I'm
and
going to assume
I
South
want to
Korea
go
here.
there.
yeah, Korea. So basically, there used to be like a highway, but then they got rid of that to make a man-made river walkway, and there's some benefits to this. People want to walk here; it's more walkable. There's better air quality. It reduces greenhouse gas emissions. There's businesses next to the river walkway, so it's a big economic point too. I really wish that the United States would consider like these projects more, like get rid of the highway and just make a river walkway. But there's a lot of like political pushback, right? Or people pushback.
There's this whenever I go to power soccer practice, we pass through Hayward, Oakwood, Berkeley. There's this clump of highways that kind of all overlap each other that we pass every time.
Mm-hmm.
And from an artistic standpoint, it is quite fascinating and gorgeous because it's like all these intertwining pathways, but also it's overwhelmingly complicated to try to think through, and I just don't think they're necessary. Like if there was a way to like simplify that, do we really need that many highways? I mean, it looks cool, but like that's not the point. That's not the point. Is it efficient? Could we do better?
I mean, in those areas, like it kind of connects like 3 different freeways or 2 different freeways.
Oh no, it's more like 7 different freeways.
Yeah, it connects 7 different freeways.
It's a monstrosity.
Yeah. I think it's only necessary like for that. Like so, one, I guess on an I-5, like one would just go on 50 in that intersection. It'd be easier to kind of like that. But yeah, I do agree with you that green space, river walkway should be more like apparent in the United States because it's, I guess, beautiful in a way.
Yeah.
It's relaxing.
Those stepping stones are cool, but I wish they had a flat, solid path next to
accessible. Yeah, I think I was actually there like when I went to Korea. Also, this is in Seoul, South Korea. I think I actually went here like one time, and it was pretty walkable. It's really nice to kind of walk around and stuff. And I think I went like under, I guess like a bridge. Yeah, under a bridge, and it was really like, I guess, cooling down too. There were a lot of people who actually like stood there and just enjoyed like the river.
Yeah, that's another thing. It's one of the things I'm considering as well with regard to walkability in places like California, because large parts of California get very warm at times of the year.
Mm-hmm. South
one of the benefits of things like walkable paths with trees alongside and man-made rivers, etc., is that they have a tempering effect on those self-same walkways. So in addition to the fact you probably don't have to walk as far to get where you need to be in a city that more prioritizes walkability. I wonder how many times we said walk in this podcast, by the way. It'd be interesting to count. Interesting but arduous. So in addition to the fact you probably don't need to walk as far in general in a walkable city as opposed to a drivable one, you may encounter a substantial tempering effect by way of there being shade and waterways nearby to absorb heat from the air as when it's very ambiently warm, and dispense that heat when it's cooler. So like at night.
Yeah, plant life and water present makes all the difference in temperature. I would know. We've lived next to a creek, and like the difference between being on the Iron Horse Trail next to the creek and like being out on the road just where, you know, there's not a whole lot of plant life, just concrete. The difference is tangible. It's huge. Like being in the middle of the blacktop on a school is so very hot, and then being on the trail next to the creek is pleasant. I mean, I could stand for some more shade here and there, but it works, right? It's tangible. It's a very quick solution to have those sort of presences there to help regulate the temperature and make it more pleasant to walk everywhere instead of just using the car for the sake of the AC.
Yeah, and we're about to end this podcast in a few minutes, and like before we kind of end it, I want to bring up this topic, this Complete Streets program by Caltrans. So Caltrans has recognized like Sacramento cities need more accessible and safer like streets. It's a new policy in all like transportation projects. Like Complete Streets features is when they provide like safe and accessible, I guess, sidewalks, and there's bike lanes, there's sidewalk bumps, there's I guess sidewalk strips too, and that's when things are completed. This is a complete street when it's safe for everyone to ride on or to walk on, and it's, I guess, pedestrian friendly. Pedestrians are free to walk without having to worry about cars and stuff. And this creates a more walkable neighborhood anyways, because it accounts for, I guess walkability for all kinds of people.
Nice. Yeah, I would speculate that it's not like the thing that we've been talking about where walkability is central as opposed to like better accounted for, but better accounting for it is definitely a worthy project compared to the norm. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad that there's solutions no matter what. Like we have all these complaints on like walkability, and the government has recognized that it's a problem that it has to be fixed.
You just have to harass them into implementing it and make sure they have the funding for it.
Yeah, actually, I work for Caltrans Office of Race and Equity, so they have a whole department just for like making sure everything, public transit, transportation related things are accessible and like for all kind of people, including us. Yeah. This is the end of the podcast. Does everyone have any last words?
With regard to walkability, where's the ramp? There's the ramp. It's on the side of the walkway. Or you don't need one because the walkway is consistent.
Yeah. Do you have any last words, Rian? Will?
I just say just maybe add a ramp if they're club.
Okay. My last words are Happy Pride Month. Give all your monies to the queers. We're in charge now. Also, don't harass us. Please let us have this month. We're tired of being killed.
Got it. Yeah, it's not fair. Anyways, with that note, this is the end of our podcast. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. We talked a ton about walkability and urban design and the problems and maybe a solution. Yeah, all right. Thank you. Bye, everyone. Hashtag where's the rap?
Bye.
Hashtag where's the rap?
You're listening to Through Our Lens with the Disabled and Non-Disabled Alliance at Sacramento State, a club, organization, whatever, for disabled students, staff, and their allies to discuss and educate each other about disability-related topics, advocate on behalf of disabled students and the community, and to hang out together and just be a community.
So we want to be more recognizable to Sac State. So please join the conversation by following and messaging us on Instagram at Dana at Sac State. It's DANA at Sac State.